Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy and Nate. Today we're going to be discussing the severe weather threat that will continue to linger here. More or less a potential severe weather outbreak that could happen here in the South Central Plains, as well as some severe storms that can linger off into the Northeast and even into the Mississippi-Ohio River Delta. Before we get started, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, because I do videos like this every single morning. I also do live streams, which I will most likely live stream tonight for tonight's severe weather threat. We will possibly have a chaser with us. We did have one last night, but if you guys are excited for that, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you guys may be up to date with all the stuff. Yeah, this is take 2 of my video because I had to restart all my Streamlabs yesterday because of my internet issues. And so, yeah, I'm going to try and speed run this and make this the fastest, longest, most informative video I've ever done. But I will have timestamps here for the days as to what all I will be talking about. So I'll be talking about today. I'll be talking about what could be happening tomorrow, which is a lot weaker than what's going to be happening today. And then I'll be talking about the future and what all could be happening. So first things first, we have a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale indicated in the orange in this enhanced risk. So if you guys live in the following areas in Fort Worth, Denton, Flower Mound, North Richland Hills, and Bedford, you guys could get a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. On the contrary, on the opposite side of the Metroplex, Dallas, you guys are in a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, as well as San Antonio, Austin, Oklahoma City, and even Cleveland, Ohio, getting up into Buffalo. You guys could potentially get some severe weather as well. Maybe even Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh could potentially get into some of that action as well. And then everywhere else in this dark green is in a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, although there is the threat for some tornadoes in some of these areas, so definitely something you're going to have to monitor as time continues to progress. Hail, there is a new additional 30% chance for hail here indicated in this red, so if you guys live in the red, that is your 30% chance, or you're in the 30% chance for severe weather. Then you also have your 15%, which is indicated in yellow, and your 5% indicated in brown. So whatever chance you have, that's your probability of getting severe hail over 1 inch within 25 miles of a point. You also have this hatched risk right here in this red circle with the dotted line in the middle. So that is indicative of you potentially getting a 10% chance or greater probability of seeing 2-inch size hail or larger within 25 miles of a point. And that is some very large hail. So if you live in any of these areas like Del Rio, Weatherford, Kerrville, Brownwood, as well as Uvalde, you guys could potentially see some large hail that could damage windows, windshields, dent cars. So I'd highly recommend bringing your valuables that are outdoors, including stuff like pets, into shelter or into some sort of cover. Then you also have your wind risk here, 15% chance indicated for the Northeast as well as for the Central Plains as well. South Central Plains, I should say. But not a whole lot of activity other than that. So whatever probability, whether it's a 5 or a 15, you have that chance of seeing 58-mile-per-hour wind gusts or larger within 25 miles of a point. So something to keep in mind, but not the major risk here for this activity, for this event here today. Then you also have your tornado risk. You have your 2%, which is indicated in your greens. And then in your browns, it's the same thing, a 5% chance for tornadoes. So areas near Wichita Falls, Lawton, Oklahoma, Del Rio, Texas, Ardmore, Oklahoma, Weatherford, Texas, you guys could potentially see some tornadic storms near your general vicinity. That's you're the highest risk of seeing a tornado today. Not a exponentially large risk by any stretch of the imagination, but that is your chance of getting tornadoes within 25 miles of a point. So definitely something you're going to have to monitor as this continues to move on through. And then some other areas that are in the 2% chance for tornadoes in this green: San Antonio, Dallas, Austin, Oklahoma City, all the way up into the Paducah, Kentucky areas, even into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, New York, into Cleveland, Ohio. You guys could potentially get the chance for some tornadoes later on today. All right, let's take a look at the timings here. Just I told you all this is take 2, so you know, I ended it off with the GFS in the last take, and yeah, that's not exactly best situation to be in, just having to restart it all, but you know what? It's alright. It's okay. Let's take a look at the timings here for everyone, and this is the new model run that's coming out, so let's just not use that, but because it's not ready yet. But you can see here the lingering thunderstorms that have been purging on through here in Oklahoma and Arkansas. You guys are in the middle of a tornado watch, although I believe it's about to expire within the next 10 minutes of me currently recording it. But a lot of storms that continue to form on through here, and then some new storms that form out in front of the line that could potentially become tornadic. I'm actually scared for these cells if they do root. Could potentially really become tornadic. I'm also scared for these cells up here in northern Arkansas. If anything can really form out there, then you will have a primed environment for some severe weather that'll continue to move on through. So definitely something to monitor across the board here as we get into the overnight hours. This is 8 o'clock my time, by the way, not 8 o'clock your time. So I'm in Eastern. If you want to know the time in Central, you just subtract 1 hour, but a lot of scattered storms here for the most part. That will most likely be forming here at 2 to 3 o'clock. This line right here that extends from Oklahoma City down to Wichita Falls will most likely be the chance for some tornadic weather. And so as that continues to move on through, that'll move off towards eastern Oklahoma. And then you have another batch of cells that'll form here at 7 o'clock. That'll start to consolidate into a line, and then you have more cells that form here near Del Rio. Watch Del Rio, guys, all right? Take a look at how explosive that cell becomes. All right, here is 7 o'clock. Actually, no, we'll go from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. It goes from barely anything to boom, big supercell, and that's the reason why I've been advocating for some sort of hires for severe weather down here at least, and the threat for hail has been increased. I would not be surprised if the threat for tornadoes increased because of that one cell. So really something we're gonna have to monitor as that continues to move on through. But then this will eventually move off and towards the San Antonio, Austin, Texas general vicinity, maybe even up towards Waco, to where you guys could potentially get a severe weather threat overnight. And it'll all be impacting the same areas at about the same time. So Dallas, Fort Worth, you guys could be impacted at around midnight, maybe a little bit after midnight, for some spotty hail, maybe even some gusty winds and the chance for tornadoes. But other than that, the line will start to consolidate, move on through, and then weaken as time continues to move off. But definitely something we're going to have to monitor. Basically, just a lot of scattered storms here that we're going to have to watch out for, even in all the 2%. The 2% risk. Anything could really be tornadic with how good the veering is here today in this event. Dew points here, a lot of moisture here. You can see in Oklahoma, there's a lot of 70s, and Texas near Wichita Falls, there's a lot of 70s. And then even in Del Rio, the dew points actually get up to like 73, so that is even more moist than some of these other areas. So a lot of moisture here at the surface for these thunderstorms to be able to try and intensify if they do end up developing. And then speaking of intensity, there is a lot of CAPE here, convective available potential energy. That's basically the buoyancy in the atmosphere between warm air rising and cold air sinking. So the greater displacement between the two within certain parts of the atmosphere could indicate in higher amounts of CAPE. And so if you have higher amounts of CAPE, your stronger storms could potentially become stronger. And so definitely something that we're going to have to watch out for as this continues to move on through. You can see here in some of these reds, we have CAPE numbers in upwards of 3,000, maybe even 3,500 joules per kilogram here. A lot of energy. Typically, you want over 2,000 in order to consider strong storms. So even anything in the yellows is pretty strong as well. And this is definitely something we're going to have to be mindful of as this continues to move on through later tonight. But a lot of CAPE here with these storms. And then all of a sudden, you know, because it's heading off into the nighttime hours, you can expect it to start to kind of falter a little bit. Wind shear here, we're going to take a look at the 500 millibar jet. And it stays relatively conservative for the most part. Towards towards the morning hours, it stays pretty strong here, but then it shifts very much so to the east. You can see it stays right within this general vicinity all the way through. You still have some chance for something to be tornadic. I'd say Wichita Falls right within here is the potential, the highest risk. If you would see something along those lines. But if there was a storm that would form out here in eastern Oklahoma, northern parts of Arkansas, that could be a very strong supercell that could push on through. And so we definitely have to be mindful of that as that continues to push off later on tonight into the, afternoon into the overnight hours. So definitely something we're going to have to be mindful of. Then we're going to take a look at the 500 millibar shear. So if you notice how the lower levels are moving off to the north, almost northeast, that's your wind shear there. And then your 500 millibar wind shear is moving off to the kind of more northeast than some of these other areas. And so right over around here, this is where we can get our veering or our change in wind direction with height. So if you can get more of that, then you'll have more supercellular characteristics, maybe even some more tornadic characteristics with some of these cells. So definitely something that we're going to have to be mindful of and that we need to watch out for as time continues to progress, because these cells could become tornadic, and we do not want this to impact anyone, or at least I don't want this to impact anyone. All right, let's take a look at the I think we'll be able to see enough ahead with the NAM 3 kilometer if we take some soundings here. And my goodness, the environment in northern Arkansas is really kind of just upticked, hasn't it? So the environment here, let's say we'll do southern Oklahoma here. We'll take a sounding here, see what we got. So not bad of a hodograph here. We'll start with the hodograph and I'll explain it to the best of my abilities. If you can imagine yourself letting go of a weather balloon and you're right here at that dot at the center of the graph and you're tracking it with a radar, the lines you see above it is what the weather balloon would take and what the path would be. So it goes north and then it goes south and then it goes east and then it goes north again and then it does a loop-de-loop and pull, and your shoes are looking good. So you got a lot of veering in the atmosphere from 0 to 1 kilometers. So not bad if you had anything that was surface-based, which I would not be surprised if there was, because it's more or less a line of storms that are going to be moving on through. So it could be a bit more linear anyways. But you guys have the potential for something to be tornadic along the line as well. So definitely something we're going to have to monitor. We'll take another sounding here for 5 o'clock in the afternoon here in southern Oklahoma. And this is a very weird sounding for the most part. You have a lot of energy still, but your veering is not as good. So it may turn a lot more linear, a lot more into a gusty wind threat. I'll take another sounding here south of Wichita Falls, better veering. So I might actually send my chaser there, just south of Wichita Falls. A lot of energy here. You can see your Cape numbers are in upwards of 3,000 joules per kilogram, even higher than that. So a lot of energy with this. You could definitely see something tornadic off of this cell. Actually, let me take another sounding of it just to see what the characteristics of it could be. So it could be a bit more cyclic, but its ventilation is out and away from the storm. So it's heading off into its forward flank downdraft, which means that if you're in the cell just directly in the path of it, you won't be able to see it until the actual storm is right on top of you. So that's something to consider. But I might have the chaser be a bit more to the south and east so he can watch it pass through. But yeah, that's definitely something we're going to want to watch out for as time moves along. I'm going to take a sounding here in northern Arkansas just to see what the environment is like. And very strong veering here. You can see how this is a perfect curl off to the right here within this red line. We're going to want to look at the 0 to 3 kilometer shear, which is indicated by that red line. So anytime this moves off to the right like this, then you have some very strong shear and some very strong veering within this system. And so definitely the potential for tornadoes is here, as long as supercells do develop. That is the key. Will they develop? And if they do, where will it be at? Because it will have to depend upon what type of environment they are in. So northern Arkansas, this actually does have some pretty good activity here, and if there was supercells to develop, then I would be pretty concerned. So I'll have to monitor that a lot more closely here tonight when I go into my analysis. And then I'm going to look at Del Rio here and see what the characteristics for these cells are down here. So I'll zoom out a little bit more and see if I can get something. There we go. So I'll take a sounding right about there for the cell that's heading out of Del Rio, and you have some very strong veering, very saturated, so or contaminated, I should say. So I'll go back and take another sounding right about here. Take a large box sounding, see what the environment is. And yeah, you have some very strong veering here with the storm. It curls off to the right, ventilates off to the north and east, so no high precipitation mess. Your cape is pretty good. Your capping inversion could make this storm really explosive, and you're definitely going to get some large hail with this. So this is a really good sounding for a supercell that could develop here near Del Rio and move off towards places like San Antonio and Austin. So we'll definitely have to monitor that as time progresses here later on tonight. But we're going to have to monitor most of these areas here overnight, as they could definitely be impacted later on. All right, let's move off towards the northeast, see what activity they are getting here for tonight. So some timings out here for you all. And I'm going to get the precip type here for this, because I'm not going to go on to Weather Bell and do that. It's a whole lot quicker with Pivotal here. You can see storms really start to form here at around 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock around Cleveland is when you guys could get some stuff, and then as this continues to move on through, Erie, Pennsylvania could potentially get some stuff, and then you know, even some areas near here in Ontario, north of Rochester and Syracuse, you guys could potentially get some storms. And as I said, the threat for it to be tornadic is possible here. So we're definitely going to have to watch out for that. I'm going to be watching out for it because it's going to be heading off into my general vicinity overnight. I'm not in the tornado risk, which is the good news there, but still something that I'm really going to have to watch out for as this continues to move on through. Dew points within this general vicinity, the greens are 50s, the blues are 60s, and then if you see any 70s, that'll be in the purple, but I don't think it gets into the 70s, and it doesn't. There's some areas that get into the high 60s. You can see here it gets into the mid to upper 60s, 68 in some spots here, just to the north and east of Canton. And so some really moist dew points here across the board, and it tells me that there is some moisture in the atmosphere within the setup. Cape, convective available potential energy. We're going to look at the surface-based cape here. Anything in the kind of gray is like below 1,000 joules per kilogram. Anything in the blue is 1,000 to almost 2,000, and anything into the yellow is 2,000 and above. So there is some energy here within some of these storms, especially here just to the south and west of Erie and just near the Cleveland vicinity. So there could potentially be some tornadic storms here. As I said, we're definitely going to have to watch out for it, but I definitely foresee some potential here along the border of Pennsylvania and New York, as well as Pennsylvania and Ohio. Then we're going to take a couple soundings here just to see what all is happening within these areas, what the conditions are. And yeah, right here in the border of New York and Pennsylvania, there is some good veering with this storm, or with this setup, so the tornadic potential is there. Not as much cape, but you still have some, so you could get some quick spin-ups along the line, and that's the reason why there is a 2% chance for tornadoes here across the board. I'm going to take one giant box sounding, actually, and see if that's the same thing. And yeah, it is the exact same thing. So the potential for tornadoes is there, spotty hail, and some damaging winds as well. So definitely something we're going to have to be mindful of as things continue to move on through here. All right, we're going to take a look at the GFS, and we're going to actually see what all is happening throughout the United States here. So this is here today, and as this continues to move on through, you can see this setup here, this set of storms then get to push off on through into the geez, I can't speak. The Ohio River Valley, as well as the Northeast, heading on through towards the coast. I don't think this is going to be as strong as what we've had prior, but there is the chance for tornadoes, as I've shown in the Storm Prediction Center down here in Louisiana, so I'd definitely be mindful of that. But not a lot of wind shear down there, so I don't foresee a whole lot of activity for you all. But then as this continues towards the weekend, the potential for severe weather begins to kind of ramp back up again. And on Sunday, there is the threat for some severe weather here that I am seeing in Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and into Arkansas. Don't take this like it is fine print. Take it with a grain of salt in regards to the placement here. So there is still the chance for some severe weather, but it might not be in that exact same place. But on Sunday, I'm seeing that could potentially happen. And then on Monday, I'm seeing some severe weather to potentially move on through here. And definitely something we're going to want to monitor in places like the Ozarks, as well as the deep south into the Ohio and the Mississippi River Valley area. And then on Tuesday, the threat for severe weather then starts to move off further east. And even the East Coast into the Mid-Atlantic, all the way up into the Northeast could join the fray, as well as the typical culprits, that is the deep south all the way into the Ohio River Valley. You guys could potentially be seeing some severe weather on Tuesday. Then that'll continue on through. And just for laughs, we're going to take a look further on into the model, into what it thinks. We're going to most likely take it with a grain of salt, but according to the GFS, something actually comes off the coast and becomes subtropical, which is kind of funny. You know, the likelihood of this actually happening is pretty small because we're getting towards the latter stages of the model. And so something subtropical like this most likely won't happen. But, you know, it very well could. We're getting into May, so, you know, there is the potential for that to happen. But it just looks unlikely, in my honest opinion. But then more storms will begin to form, and a massive line of storms that'll push on through from this massive cold front and this pretty strong low-pressure system that's over here in Canada. Potential for severe weather to continue to ramp up. So if you were to take anything from this model run, it's basically saying that severe weather is forecasted to basically continue to stay active into May. And so we're definitely going to have to watch out for that as time moves on through. Alright guys, that's basically it for the video here. If you guys did enjoy it, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, and share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media. I will be live streaming most likely today, so if you guys are excited for that, please be sure to turn on notifications. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys later tonight. Peace out.